All right, we'll call the meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Environmental Commission of the Borough of Fairhaven in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment, including streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road. Public participation for this meeting on October 9th is available by call and phone number or through Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions, comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question, comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of the meeting was sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on October 3rd, posted on the municipal website, bulletin board in the municipal building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Environmental Commission Secretary is directed to include this statement in the minutes of the meeting. Thank you. Let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gary, is it okay if we mute you until it makes sense to talk?
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks. Christy, will do roll call?
Tom Bailey.
Here.
Jesse Murray, absent. Anna Antonin.
Here.
William Dorner.
Here.
Kelly Flanagan.
Here.
Susan Globus.
Here.
Gary Patterson.
Here.
Yes.
Jonathan Peters, absent. Councilman Olson is not here. Also present, Borough Secretary Larson. You have a quorum.
Thank you. First item of business is the approval of our September meeting minutes. They were circulated with everybody last week. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Third.
Okay, we get a vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Christy, thank you for doing a great job capturing the workshop portion of that. I think that was a little bit challenging having everybody all over the room, so thank you for helping with that part. Cool, so we got a few items on the agenda tonight, a few pre-reads that went out. Again, Christy, thank you for getting all the materials out to everybody in advance. There's a couple of things I would like to put before the commission for some discussion and a vote. There's some couple items. Down here in administrative items, we have an item for budget. What I'd like to do is actually cover that in the other topic areas, and it'll kind of make sense as we get to them, but not necessarily have a specific conversation at the end of the meeting on just budget, but actually have it kind of throughout. So with that, we can roll right into an update on our ERI.
Okay, so you got a version of it. I apologize for it not being on Google Docs. I was having trouble getting the images in there, so I just took it off because there was a lot of rearranging, rewriting, and I wanted to see it with the images in the doc. So the images that are on your draft copy are just placeholders. So you can like them or not like them. And what I did was identify who the audience is for this document. And once I did that, it made it easier to edit because it's council, it's zoning board, planning board, educators, us, of course, and the public. And I use that as the filter to edit it. It's a wonderful document. It could be used as a textbook, but the issue is that it's so large, I'm not sure it would be read. And the purpose of it is to be a reference document. And so I just went through and took out some things that I wanted to focus on things that are really pertinent to Fairhaven alone, basically, give it some context. So when you read it, keep that in mind, and I'm ready for their comments, and I was working from a couple of different versions, so if I miss some, just add them in, we can put it back on Google Docs, and there are some areas that I would like to offer to others to write, because I don't feel qualified to write them. And so you'll see those comments in there too. And like I said, the images, I mean, I pulled images off my phone, I pulled images from websites and just gave them attribution. But I did, the biggest part of it, I think Sean and somebody else wanted, why don't we start with some of our beautiful environmental assets here. So I put that in an overview, and I tried to name all of them and give pictures of them. So the idea is to make it, change the tone so it's more accessible.
I thought it was great. That beginning was really helpful,
good.
just to kind of introduce,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
here's the spaces that we're talking about.
Good.
Thank you.
I think you captured it.
Yeah. So it's not complete, but it's a decent first draft, so.
So it's a question, are there images, like, I don't want to say like stock photos, but like, are there, like, this Borough Hall, like, would the administration have like,
Some of them I took off the Borough website.
okay,
And Betty Ann has a house, like she houses all those. If you need any of those in a different format, she can help you.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some of them are just, they need to be reshot, like the bird sanctuary for one.
Mhm.
And today I walked to the Acme, so I took another shot of McCarter Park. Like
They
the,
recognize me for it.
I haven't looked at it yet, but we'll see. And so then the other thing, editorial, do we want people using the assets or do we want them without people? Those kind of editorial decisions we can go through and make, but just keep that stuff in mind.
Well, I don't know, would you have them sign off if, you post their picture? in the-
Oh, absolutely. They're all kinds of. You can use photos that you grab off the internet for educational purposes. You could stretch this to say that you, but they're copyright issues for sure. Yeah. And I think John was gonna update maps.
Some maps, right? Yeah, did you
I,
get updated maps from him or no?
no,
Okay. I wonder how these maps might have changed too.
I do too.
Yes. the
So
data.
I can't vouch for the.
Okay,
accuracy.
So-
So you'll see my comments, which are either in bold when I need help or, but feel free to add comments yourselves, of course.
okay, so where you want people to help author, you put it in bold here
Yeah,
and call it, okay, great.
and honestly, I think because the stormwater issue is such an issue that we ought to reorganize it. So after we get all the information, my thought is people's attention span isn't what it used to be, so prioritizing some of the content might happen too.
make it short. and put
Yeah.
buttons.
Because the idea is to make it usable, right? I couldn't even find it on our website. It's not called out as BRI, which I don't know if we need to make a motion to do that, but when we put the time and effort into this and it's got a lot of good information,
Right,
I think we want it as visible as possible.
as visible, and I also think too, where you could click on what section you think you need to read, that will take you there, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be its
Right.
own
Mhm.
page then,
Yeah.
so that it like lives on the website, it's like, it's
Rather than
it's
like
not
a
a
PDF.
PDF,
Yeah.
yeah, it should be
Right.
built as a
Oh,
page. So that it, then you can click and open the images.
Because not everyone needs all this stuff,
Right.
but they might just wanna.
Go to
click on-
stormwater.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to reorganize it the way you're talking about, because I'm not sure what you're saying.
I've got it in my, maybe we
Yeah.
can, who is like the web developer?
Betty
Betty Ann? Okay, so we can work with Betty Ann on
Yeah.
that.
You're actually trying to like make a site within our site that would, you would click into it.
If you, sometimes you can embed it as, some type of format where you can click on a sidebar, like a menu, and it can still like take you there.
Yeah.
I don't know the technical, but I know that I've seen documents that are embedded in, you know,
Yeah.
sites that you can look up and click on and it'll totally bring it.
Well, some of this information is going to change before the next one is done. So my thought if this will be distributed digitally, just hot link
Right,
the source.
right.
Because recycling, there was like 2 pages of recycling information in the document that I got.
Right.
Well, that's
That's
gonna
all,
change.
right, I already have. it,
Yeah,
right?
and so I just put the borough website recycling link. And if we do that, we can shorten this.
Sure.
Like, okay, cross references.
Yeah, just hot link it to the original source.
Because that will be that will be updated,
Yeah.
that will be the source.
That'll be it,
So
yeah,
That's
I
like,
see what you, yeah, so that we don't have to write it out and then change
No.
it, yeah, that's
No.
fine.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. It would be the sections would be on the left-hand
Yeah.
side, every section. Stormwater, recycling, whatever, climate,
yeah,
the table of contents essentially, and then when you click on it,
it will just,
it just moves
Yeah.
to it.
kind of like even, you know, jump to the recipe, like, you know,
Yeah,
like.
jump to the
different-
recipe, yeah, it's like a blob, it's a big old blob. That's easy, you can do that.
So I don't need to read all that. just
No.
tell me that. Give me
No
whatever.
carry that. That should live on the borough website under the environmental commission.
it does, but
It's
it's not,
impossible, it's like.
you
an
can't,
index.
I had to ask Christie, where on the website? I was even in our tab and it's like buried in
You
there.
can put things anywhere you want, just
Yeah.
ask Betty Ann, she's happy to help, put you organize the webpage.
Great, great. That's above my.
Above
head.
Okay, so do you, for like the editing part, where you've got some of the bold text, do you know who needs to, like, do you need us to go in and look at it, or do you need to know,
Yeah.
do you know who would be the author of some of that content?
Probably not. I don't know who wrote this in the first place. They did an excellent job. There's just a tremendous amount of information. And I was just trying to take it out of academia a little bit into
Yes.
average person
Right,
on the
this
street, which I understand as of today is an 8th grade education. It used to be a 9th grade, but anyway, so I was trying to make the tone like that. So no, Sean, I don't. So, and you may read it and say, I tried to take adjectives out of it to make it impartial.
Sure.
And then there is a thought, this really isn't a Chamber of Commerce document, you know, let's get really specific about the intent of the document. And I think some of the information in there can come out still.
So we did talk to Jessie about that, she's been traveling, but she said she would dive in and take a look at some things, and she gave you the go ahead to
Yeah.
really
Yeah, just start.
take it down and
Okay,
reconfigure it.
Yeah,
So once she's kind of back and settled, she said she'd take a look.
yeah.
okay. So I guess the action is then for all of us to take another
Mhm.
crack at it with this version,
Great.
have a look before next month. And do you have like do you want to be at a certain point? Like, do you want to have all the comments and reviewed by next month? Do you want to come back with the comments and discuss next month? Like, what are you guys thinking timeline wise?
I don't know, a month sounds, I don't know what Jessie's schedule is. I would be really comfortable if she had time to look at this.
And then also,
And everybody else who's got
meeting, you know,
expertise.
talking to John Peters about what some of the maps can be updated and what needs,
Mhm.
you know, like what his schedule is for those.
Okay. So try to catch up with Jesse, try to pin down John. If you want more images, it sounds like Betty Ann would be a great place to start for getting.
I don't wanna take on all this work by
Yeah.
myself, just cause I don't have the time to do
Okay.
it. But so if we can figure out, like, by next month, maybe everybody adds comments in, and then we see what needs to be done, because, I'll be traveling and I don't know,
Got it, okay,
yeah.
so we'll aim for another revision.
Yeah, I think we should everybody should go in there. You can make it a Google Doc. You don't have to
Yeah,
download it, so
yeah.
you can convert it yourself to a
Right.
Google Doc. Go in there. We can all kind of check it out.
Right.
Add any comments or just say, we're good with this. Even
Right.
like, that's a comment. Just say this is done. So it's finally locked down. I
Right,
can
like
reach out
each
to John.
section, you could be.
Yeah, this is done. I
Right.
can reach out to John, make sure that he has an overview of it. If there are any maps that he currently has done that he can add in there where he thinks appropriate.
Mhm.
I'll text Jessie, get her eyes on it. I can work with Betty Ann to make sure that this is up. I would say by the end of the year. Or the end of this, like next November, December, this can be living on the website.
Good.
Great.
I think it's gonna be useful.
Me too.
Yeah.
We also have to-
Yeah, but this draft has been shared with other committees? Got their
No.
comments?
Yeah, early on, before, well.
This draft
This
is-
draft, this draft just got to Christie, yes.
I think this is the one that we work on going forward. So if
Yeah.
we, I don't know if we, I mean, in
The
terms of
natural
like,
area to add their section, cause like they can write that whole section.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I was
Carolyn-
thinking,
Like Mark and Bonnie can write the pollinator, like it
Yeah.
doesn't have to just come from the AC, right?
right, that's what I was.
Yeah, those are
thinking.
gaps. I thought we had asked them to come in and give us that content early on, like a couple months ago.
I don't think so.
I didn't get it, I don't know.
We had a lot of, I know we had a lot of.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
work off, we'll send this to work off this one. I think this should be the one.
Cause there's so much updated stuff to the
Right.
Third
Yeah.
Street Trail and
Right,
the next legs and sections and what's been done and then,
Mhm.
shade tree,
That'd be
and
great.
tree ordinance,
Is that still being workshopped?
I don't know.
So that will then live, like, that will, we could pull into
Not
that, yeah, that could go
Probably
into
to
the
there,
ordinance
but
itself.
they're doing-
So you want me to send it to basically all the committees in Fairhaven to see if they have comments?
I would
And
say
who should
anyone
they
that's
direct them
associated.
to?
Definitely natural area, definitely shade tree,
Mhm.
green team. Yep, great. Carolyn said she would be happy to help with the natural area and she has maps and images. Great.
Yeah, I'm not even sure everything that we have, all our assets are in this document,
Right.
honestly.
Right, I mean, cause we have, I mean, even just the map of the natural area and the trails, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
You know, like
that's not
that,
in there.
the one that's up front.
yes. Do we want or need rec or planning or zone or any of those?
Probably not, I think,
I don't
I
know,
think they'll,
I don't know what I don't know. So I think,
We had originally asked everybody from the environmental roundtable to look at that, you know.
Yeah, let's cover that base, and then if we
Yeah.
need additional input after that.
I think it could be like a living document that we can
Mhm.
add to if we feel the need to figure out, you know, if there's
Yeah.
something we missed.
Right, there's no,
Right.
nothing stops us from
Right.
continuing to do this, it's just we
Yeah.
have to do it.
Great.
but I think that I'm comfortable with December, this will be living on the website.
Oh, yeah, I think so, for
If
sure.
that's our December meeting, will be our big reveal on our Borough website.
All right, sounds good.
We'll cross off our agenda finally.
Yeah. 2017, what was it? They're both fixed by December.
All right, thanks guys for taking on the lion's share of this. I know it's time consuming. All right. So I was gonna have, I have on here, a tree ordinance update from Brian. It was shared with everyone.
Right.
The context I'll share, which is what's come from Brian, is it's been, it like the ERI has been around the block. This one I would say more. I don't know that the last big step was the borough attorney was taking the next turn on writing it the right way for an ordinance to be written. So that's where we're at. It has everyone's input into it that's been sort of agreed upon, negotiated, debated. So I don't think the Shade Tree Commission is looking for wholesale changes or input, but certainly if there are things that were missed or additional items, you know, they'll listen. So that was kind of the context of sharing it again, was if anyone wanted to, they could. share a point of view or share feedback.
The only thing I noticed is they include the municipality in it,
Yeah.
which is good, so this way the government just can't cut down trees.
Mhm. That's missing.
Okay. I mean, is anyone feeling strongly about it? Do we need to open a conversation about it now, or are you happy to just? I'm fine either
I'm
way.
happy.
I don't want to shove anyone else's.
No,
You feeling good?
I feel fine with it.
Okay. I don't know if you guys had a chance to dive into it. That's okay.
A lot of it I don't understand, but from what I did understand, it seemed reasonable.
All right, we'll move on. I was gonna share an update on the McCarter Pond Committee, just to say, just to kind of recap. So then we stood up a separate, mayor stood up a separate committee to look at remediation steps for the pond. We met for the first time Monday, September 16th. Did some of the basic things you do. We talked about the purpose of the committee, the pond's value to the community, expectations for remediation, root causes. Really, we focused on how to involve the community in this process and not just make it, 9 people, working on it heads down.
So, well, you're looking at McCarter Pond, shouldn't you also be looking at, Schweikers Pond? Since it may encompass the same kind of,
I think we'll learn a lot from what we do with McCarter, but it
you don't wanna become just a pond committee as opposed to McCarter Pond.
Schweikers is the one
it
that doesn't give us access. That's
That's
shippies.
Yeah.
Shippies.
It's a valid point. It
I bring it back to the committee because Schweikers, people on River Road see it right away. They may not necessarily see McCarter's Pond.
Sure.
But I think a lot of the issues are probably parallel to both locations.
Yeah, when you talk about sedimentation, when you talk about
Drainage,
the growth in there, like I said, there's a lot of things that
Similar issues, similar problems.
access to that is a little bit harder because of how that pond is situated.
However, there was supposed to be a trail put around the west side of that pond.
Well, are you speaking about Schwenker's Pond? But I can't hear anything over here, but are
Oh,
you speaking
sorry.
about Schwenker's Pond?
I was giving an update about McCarter Pond Committee, and she asked about looking at Schwenker's Pond.
Yeah, I live on it and I actually am here to talk about deer, but I'm pretty concerned, about Schwenker's because it's so beautiful and it's an exceptional wetland according to the DEP. And it's just going to growth. I mean, it's just, so I'll come another time. But Gene McGonigal, who wrote the wetland regulations for the state of New Jersey, was willing to come and look at it about 3 years ago. And no one was interested. The mayor wasn't interested at that time, a different mayor. But it's really a shame. I mean, you have black-crowned night herons, you have bald eagles, you have great egrets. It's this incredible wild refuge. And there's so many people who come there every day. It's just the values, what's important. It's a beautiful pond. I just wanted to speak up because I live right on it.
No, it's great. So, like I said, we are focused on McCarter.
However, please take back that there is interest in, Schwenker's Pond. And perhaps you should make it all encompassing, since you're addressing one, it may reflect on the other.
Yeah, or we might be looking for volunteers that want to look specifically at Schwenker's Pond. That's another way of handling it. But yeah,
So 2 separate learning curves as opposed to one? See, that's where I think that they should be bundled.
At least maybe to assess them at the same time, so, from a budgeting standpoint or anything, you could kind of say, hey, if we wanted to do one action, how do we spread it across, or is that the most efficient action for all of the town's ponds?
Noted.
Hydrolinking, has
Yep.
that been discussed at Schweikers at all?
No,
Is it deeper than McCarter?
it is deeper than McCarter, and it hasn't been, it was a private property. Longer than, you know, and it was only been a public property, you know. Well, I don't know how long, but not nearly as long as McCarter, and, we've talked in the EC about Schwenker's Pond, and it's come up as, issues before, not nearly we haven't seen the complete transformation that we've seen in McCarter Pond, which has kind of always been on our agenda because we've tried to, and we've been actively pursuing that, as compared to Schwenker's, which was,
Yeah,
not to say that I do understand what you're saying, for sure. We're trying to learn a lot about, I mean, obviously, there's a lot about pond ecology and what happens to ponds over time and how being surrounded by the ponds, by residential areas, also by street and street runoff too. So we are learning, and there are plans, hydro raking, with the county as well too, and perhaps that's something to look at with Schwenkers too, but we know more data about McCarter Pond, what its depth is, what it's,
years ago, I spoke to Rumson, I got an Oprah of everything they did to clean out their ponds and everything, so I've got tons of information on Schwenkers. It's only about a foot deep now.
We were talking about that at the last McCarter Pond meeting, where we were talking about Pomfrey Pond specifically in Rumson and how they did a full cleanup of that, and
They did,
that was something that, you know.
and then by Dean Porter. Yeah.
Right, back in front of the school as well, so,
And this pond, Schwenkers, is the only special wetland,
okay,
and it's just a bloody shame.
yeah, well, both of them, I would say the situation with all of the water,
Yeah,
the current status of the water life in Fairhaven is
Yeah.
generally a shame, it's
but I
something.
priced out getting rid of everything and the hauler that Rumson used. So
Yeah.
I do have a lot of information.
Do you wanna share that with us? I
I will
mean,
be glad to give it.
we were looking into getting in touch with Rumson to find out what they
Have a
had.
file like that,
That'd be great, that's a great start.
good.
Thank you. So what I wanted to share was on Wednesday, the 23rd, so October 23rd, and you guys are all welcome. It's a public forum to talk about McCarter Pond. So it's to talk through and give the residents an opportunity to share, their perspectives, the issues they've seen, or the opportunities they're aware of, and we get a chance to share, what the borough has been doing and, you know, what we plan to do, going forward.
What time?
On the 23rd, it would be at 7. Here,
October 23rd?
October 23rd at 7, right here. So this is where I wanted to bring up, the commission, about budget. So we are sitting on about $3,500 of our operating budget for the year, and that's a combined Green Team Environmental Council budget. I would like to set aside some of that money to use towards consultants and professionals to help us revise one of the old reports. So in 2017, the borough had commissioned a restoration report from Avaki and LSA. And we'd like them to take that report from 2017 and revise it. What it gave us was several options for what to do. And some of those options may apply to Schwenkers,
Yeah.
looking at it from both lenses. But in what I want to make sure we do now is, as we're trying to forecast the spend of our budget for the rest of the year, set aside some money. So if they do require some funds to make those updates, you know, we've got the ability to pull the trigger right away. So I'm asking you guys is if you're on board with that, we'll have a vote today just to say we're willing to put aside $1,500.
I support that decision.
What was the report? I'm sorry. What?
It was called it has a long name, but essentially it was a restoration options report
Of what? Restoration of what?
of McCarter Pond,
Oh, okay. So it's ponds specific.
specific to that.
And they're the engineer,
The
right?
engineers.
Yes.
Yeah. So
They
they were
bring back
thinking-
valuable information. The
Right,
thing is, if you don't spend the money by November, you might lose it
next year.
this year.
No, this year,
Coming up.
if you don't use it, you lose it.
If you don't spend it, encumber it, you're gonna lose it.
Okay.
So I think it's a very good idea.
So all in favor?
Uh,
All right, thank you guys. And we'll continue to have updates on as a part of the McCarter Pond Committee, continues to meet. We will meet, like I said, at the end of the month, for hosting a public forum.
Any idea when they can start this consulting?
So part of this is, this body kind of agreeing to things like this, and then I go back to Chris York, the administrator.
Right.
And we have an active dialogue with the provider and try to figure out if we can get it timed. Great. These next 3 months. Cool, all right, I was gonna add one more to
I
current
just had a
business.
question.
All right, hey Gary,
Oh, I had my hand up, but my virtual hand. Did you say Avakian? Is that,
Avakian.
Right?
yes,
Yeah, Avakian.
so they're on some kind of like retainer? I mean, are they already working for the town somehow?
they have provided, they've provided several assessments and reports related to the pond.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious because I mean, I thought that they prepared the bid documents for the hydro raking,
Yes, they helped with that as well.
which, as I understand it, didn't work.
Well, I think that we're in a lawsuit with this sub, right? So they
It's-
contracted it out. Well, we contracted it to someone else, not to that group, not to that engineer. And they were the ones who didn't know what to do. So true, they did essentially recommend 3 different options, one of them being this group. But
But I thought that they tried it
They
with
weren't
somebody
the ones
else and
that
it didn't,
tried it,
and it
right?
didn't work twice. I thought.
Sorry, say that again, Gary.
No, I mean, I know they put it out to bid, the low bidder, and I think there were no, some kind of litigation with them. But then I thought they rebid it and then a new contractor came out and it didn't work again. Is that,
No, I don't, that's not accurate.
But,
Yes, it has been, part of it has been hydro rate. The first guy, they're in,
right,
he didn't do anything. They had somebody come and they did part of.
Phase 1.
The hydro rate.
right.
so was it done twice?
No, it was supposed to be done again, and I believe it was supposed to be done this fall. Because it was done last fall or last winter, right? And that's when all the tire tracks froze up, and then we had to ask the borough to clean that up. And then the second phase was supposed to be done, however, to my understanding is that I don't know, and this is where we're not clear, like what is going to happen with that phase 2, because what I heard is that the county is getting a hydro raker and we are going to be the first ones or proceed with that in the spring. But I don't know what's going on with the.
Yeah, I don't want to get like too
Yeah.
confused with different topics here. I think we were talking specifically about using money for the next phase of more of a study, not to take, physical action. Gary, is your concern that is your concern using Avakian? Is that what you're raising?
yes. Basically.
So they're like my understanding is they prepare, just like other board, like the planning board, the zoning board, they have professionals that prepare documents for them. That's what
Yeah.
Avakian does for us. They prepare documents, they prepare studies.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that the documents that they prepared were not, accurate or, maybe it wasn't if 2 different contractors used the same documents and it didn't work either time, then, but that's what I don't know. That's what my understanding is.
So I guess I'm seeing it as separate as you hired someone to help you with the business part of it, like preparing the document, and that document is used for people to then bid on the work.
Right.
Right, so the people that bid on the work and we had to choose the lowest cost
Mhm.
provider to do the work. The issue
Right.
was with that person, not with the company that provided the documentation.
That's my question. I don't know if
I
that's.
think the administrators also.
Gary, just another thing, the Vakian did this study, I don't know if you recall, but it was back in 2017, I believe, that actually highlighted the different cost options to clean the pond and what cost it would be and kind of like, you know, from high, medium, low and their rate of effectiveness. And so since the pond looks very different in many places from that time period, we thought perhaps them revising it, you know, they did a lot of that bulk already, but just updating it with current numbers, current, you know, information. But I do, you know, understand, but. Like, I
Yeah, I mean,
understand, like,
I'm
you
just-
know, like,
I'm
But-
reading from the last month's minutes and it says the pond was hydro-raked twice and it did not work. And so the vacant is the one who we paid to tell you that it would work.
no,
Two different
because,
contractors and it didn't work. That's my.
but there was 6 or 7 different options and not one of those options gonna work solely at it, right? If you only use one option, so there's a lot of different. Hydro raking is not going to fix the entire pond completely, right? And because of so much organic material and muck that's already built up, perhaps we need to also even think about dredging, I don't know, or hydro raking and chemical treatment and aeration and, you know, increase the water flow that's going through there. There's a lot of other options. I don't think we can look at it just solely what we've been kind of doing it like taking one of those, you know, options that they're giving us recommendations is gonna make it work. I think it has to be in tandem with another or a couple.
Okay, I mean, I'm just saying that if we paid them to come up with a solution, and it sounds like they didn't come up with a solution, right? Is that correct?
Avakian's the only ones that do it, you know, no, I have to imagine not, but this is like where Donna McCormick, who used to work for Avakian, now works, you know, like somebody who's in that field that understands that business and could perhaps provide, you know, alternatives and alternative methods of looking at it. I mean, again, that information is 7 years old now. I know just from the meeting we had with friends of McCarter Pond, people were sharing resources of what ponds in Cape Cod did that was thinking outside the box and other stuff that they were doing and suctioning vegetation out so you're not disturbing the vegetation that's on the bottom. And it's a different way of looking and, you know, so there's a lot of different methods or ways that you can approach.
Should we consider
Clean
getting
ponds.
another engineer's input? I mean, is that within our,
Yeah, so I mean, nothing, and maybe using the name was the problem. The idea is we're looking for like a quick, not spending a lot of money, but
On
getting
the
an update on
Sure.
costs
Okay.
primarily, right? I don't think it's
And options, right?
yeah,
yeah, no, you know, take away a couple like bulkheads, add in some other newer technology that might be available today that wasn't readily
Right.
a best practice 7 years ago. And that's what we've asked for, so.
I
we
keep
got-
going back to the Rumson thing, like we really should, it can't be too far removed from their entire, like what they were dealing with, so I do think that, to Gary's point, like we should take another option in for this as well, like, you know, include both of them. It is a good point to have them come back and potentially, because they've started the study, but why not use somebody who's actually executed it successfully? fully?
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
So,
There were a lot of grants available.
we just got into the grand feed. You know,
Don't professional service contracts have to go out to bid?
Unnecessarily.
No?
If it's under a certain,
It's a threshold, whatever it is.
So that was my second question is, would anybody do this for $1,500?
I know, that's the question.
Probably.
But we don't have, I mean, that's the thing, we don't have a ton of money, so we're trying, I was just trying to get us, if,
Do
you know,
something,
this group was on board with it, cool, then we can go back to Chris. He can negotiate with providers and say, hey, you know, we've got this asset that we paid for once, we don't wanna do the whole work again,
Yeah.
you know, can we update it?
Cool.
Cool, all right, good, Gary?
Yeah, okay, sure.
I did want to add one more to the current business, and it's in relation to, using our budget as well for this end of the year. So you'll remember back in July, Mark Olson was here, presented on behalf of Alex Arhanic. for the pollinator garden extension.
Yes.
We agreed to do it on the Third Street Trail. The governing body agreed. Now Alex is in the process of raising the money and buying the materials and would like to do it, you know, in this next month or so. He's raised $650 towards his $1,500 goal. And so we'd like to chip in, both the Green Team and Environmental Commission. So there are some dollars left over from the Sustainable New Jersey grants. That's about $30. We were going to then bring in some Green Team funds of $100, which would give him a total from us of like $130 towards this project. You know, it's not a tremendous amount, but it helps, you know, it helps. So I was gonna bring that to this group for discussion and ultimately, if we're all on board with it, a vote to support $128.12 going to Alex Arhanic and the Pollinator Garden Extension Project.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor. Agreed, yeah.
Okay.
And just clarification, is that $28, that has to be, that's, to be utilized at Seconi Farms, is that correct? Do we know? I mean, I know it's remaining in
the grant.
the grant, so was that was that part,
I think you
was
can
it
use it for any.
anything?
vendor of the borough.
Okay, so it just wasn't for just for plants, okay,
Yeah,
so
but
we can use that for planting.
I guess you'd have to look at the grant and see what it
If it is
says.
stipulations too.
Yeah, no.
What is left in your budget after you spend 1,500 and 130? What are you gonna use the rest of the money for
Well,
between now and December?
just a way.
We got next topic is coming up.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's okay. No, it's, I said, we get to it all throughout. So yeah, we can triple check what that.
Okay, and I'm happy to
That grant
move
is-
from the event supplies, like that $30 from there to the pollinator garden, because I don't think we'll need that much.
Okay,
Okay, oh, there's room for that, $130.
great. Okay, so that closes current business. New business, we were going to tackle, from a couple months ago, we brought back the Normandy Waterfront Park Restoration. I just want to give everyone an update, and Kelly, please chime in. So Kelly, Jesse, and I met with Chris York and Nick in September. What we were trying to do is bring Chris up to speed on what would, and he already was pretty, pretty well read into there's a Stevens Tech ALS report and a conceptual design that had been previously prepared. You know, a lot of you guys are probably familiar with it. It was a concept of turning that borough property at the end of the Normandy into a living shoreline, not using a bulkhead, not using, things like that in order to reduce erosion. It seems like there's general alignment between the governing body, the administration, our organization, historic stakeholders that we've worked with. There is funding already earmarked, so there's borough funds set aside in about 56,000. There is 22,000 from funds set aside by the Outworks for the project. So that's a total of 78 just sitting there earmarked for the project that's kind of just sitting there waiting. So again, what I'd like to do today is bring it to a formal kind of vote to bring it back to life. You know, I know it's not really ever been out of your purview. I know it's always been an important topic, but I think we now have a borough administrator that's keen on seeing it move forward. What we believe we need to do next is to take that design concept and revise the survey that was used, because it's now 6 years old.
Yeah, 7.
6-7 years old as well. We have a partner in ALS to support, design input, helping us obtain grants, identify grants, obtain grants. So what I'd like to do is set aside $2,000 of our operational budget to fund the survey and any other professional services we might need in the next couple months to restart this project.
This project is 8 years old, 8.5 years old.
Yeah. And the problem is, I mean, the erosion that's been happening.
Yeah, it's just gonna get worse and worse and
Yes.
worse.
Yeah, so, the survey, obviously, is gonna look different.
Right.
Yeah, that shoreline. And this is, connected to stormwater and everything else, but we just, in order to even begin, and connected to 21 Fairhaven Road too. And we, obviously wanna consider the waterfront and living shorelines, not just here, but maybe perhaps use this as a way to, as an educational tool, as a awareness to people that are living on the river, but, starting here and then definitely having this inform the 21 Fairhaven Road Committee and other waterfront, public and private properties.
And I know this group has talked about how do we handle this with 21 Fairhaven, do we do it together, and I think there's a lot of value in us getting out in front with this property. And addressing the issues like the erosion, the hillside, the beach erosion, the stormwater from the street. Not get too wrapped up in piling on, but like, let's address that kind of scope of work. And I think there's a lot that anyone looking at 21 Fairhaven Road will say, okay, cool, that's how they did it there. Like, what can we learn from that?
Right, and there's a lot of, what we talked about too, there's a lot of stakeholders there. I mean, you've got the yacht club right there, you got people that live right there, you also have an access point for emergency services to get in and out of the river if they need to, so. Taking all that in mind and just approaching this, how best we can support and stabilize that shoreline as it is now in the vegetation. But also, teach people about alternatives to hard stabilization. And perhaps, looking at those plans that Rutgers did for us, maybe a little differently, instead of cutting off access to that road, maybe putting rain gardens along the side, so you still have access in and out, right, so,
It's not so hard.
right, and, so that's why, just to get started and even apply for grants or to get ALS to in helping, we just definitely need a revised survey. Right. Okay.
Any other discussion, questions, comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Yes,
Thank you. All right. So that's 2,000, 1,500, and 100.
128.
128. Well, the $28 is actually ours. But
Right, it's in the grant money.
that gives you like
That's
36 and change.
You know what? You're doing something. You're moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, that's the bottom line.
Gotta spend it.
Hopefully we still have enough time to do it. So that's the idea. So thank you guys for that, sitting through that part of it. The next topic is deer mitigation. So I know Susan, you joined us, and are you?
I'm Meg.
Meg?
Hi, guys. Nice to meet
Okay.
you.
How are you?
Good.
So Susan, you've got material to present.
I beg your pardon?
You have a presentation.
I have a PowerPoint.
Would you like to come up and present?
It's already recorded.
Oh, okay, so we just watch it?
Yeah. But I assume Meg is going to go first.
Either way.
Sure, Meg can go first, and then I have a PowerPoint. I think it's about 25 minutes.
Okay.
Is it,
So, anyway, proceed, and then we'll.
Okay. I was thinking more like about 5 minutes of presentation. Does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to go as fast as possible. So just so you know, my viewpoint on the deer.
Sorry, can you just state your name and
Sure.
address?
Hi, I'm Meg Kelly. I live at 98 Harvard Road. So I'm,
Sorry, and just,
Yeah,
are you, just any like credentials or background? in
no,
this? Are you coming as an expert?
this is, I am not coming as an expert. I'm coming as someone who has done some research and just wanted to
Okay,
share my opinions after talking with the council, the natural area committee, and just hearing some of the feedback. So I know you guys spoke to New Jersey. They came in and gave you a presentation. They're obviously backed by hunting or hunters, you know, and their main goal is to get it back into the suburbs. So I'm kind of here to try to give you a more well-rounded, educated, topics of discussion, basically, just so that hopefully we can come to, you know, more thoughtful and effective and potentially compassionate outcomes here. So if we're going to control the population, so from what I've heard, and if you guys have any other concerns besides deforestation and vehicle collisions, if you could just let me know, anyone, Lyme's disease, anything, just to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously disease is a main problem with Lyme disease and also the waste-of-way disease.
Okay, so let me just maybe touch on that just really briefly first. So if you look at any of the health organizations, there is no information and they do not support killing deer. There's no information to support doing that actually reduces Lyme disease. If you look at the health organization's actual approach to it, they say it's a targeted approach to your residents where you need to just educate them that ticks or Lyme disease is not really spread within a 24-hour period. So obviously do a check, get it off, you know, common sense sort of things. But if you're actually really concerned about the tick population, killing deer isn't going to help. If you think about the size of a deer and how many ticks can actually live on that deer, killing them, it doesn't really help. They just go to the next animal, if it's other mammals or deer, you know, whatever the case may be. So it doesn't lower the population of ticks. The only thing that does is they have these 4 poster devices. Basically, think of like rollers that you would paint your house with, and the deer stick their head in, they eat. It actually puts like a chemical, a tick repellent and killer that goes on the deer, spreads throughout their body, and it does actually reduce the tick count a lot. So hunting is not going to really do anything in that manner, but there is an approach if that's a main concern from the natural area and the council and mayor. I didn't hear that as a main thing, so if we were gonna spend our money on things, I think that should maybe be secondary. For deer population, so there's 3 approaches. So the first is immunocontraception, which, just to educate you, there's 2 types of prescriptions. It's called PZP and Gonacon. Basically, someone comes in, they dart the deer with these prescriptions. It works essentially like the pill. It's only, the negative is it's only about 60 to, let's say, 85% effective the first year, and then it kind of decreases year 2 or year 3. So you have to keep going back, you know, and doing this on average a 2-year basis. And it gets expensive. It's about $500 to $1,000 per dart. A lot of times it's not actually approved in New Jersey because, again, they want to go about with these hunts in the suburbs. A lot of times it's approved if it's done through the state wildlife, you know, programs, but sometimes they don't approve it. They want to go through hunting, you know, and whatever.
So maybe just pause for a second.
Sure.
So I'd say this group has had a conversation. We did recommend to the governing body the hunt
Right.
So I would say maybe kind of take your comments and maybe a little more streamlined. So is there an alternative that you would like the town to consider?
Yeah, so that's one consideration. The second one is sterilization. So there's an organization called White Buffalo, which does it through multiple states. They're currently doing, the closest one is in Staten Island. Basically, they come in, they dart the deer, put them, you know, out. They actually carry the deer to a certain location that would be somewhere near the natural area. They sterilize them, bring them back to the wild. So it's estimated that after a 4-year period, it reduces the population by 45%. Talking to White Buffalo, the cost would be probably about $900 to $1,500 per deer. So the positives about this is that you're not killing out the population instantaneously, where other deer would just come in and kind of the food supplies there, you know, everything. It would be a slower decline, but you wouldn't see this massive migration from one to the other, especially if other towns aren't going through a hunt.
I thought that deer stay local, they stay.
So that's actually not true for males. Does are usually within 200 to 300 acres, usually, not always. But male deer can travel like 50 miles, like it really spans. In order to do this, you would have to get about 80% of the population sterilized. You know, but it's obviously like a more compassionate way to do it, lowers the percentage of slower rate. Staten Island is currently doing this. They've seen, you know, a lot of benefits, including deer-related collisions reduced by about 60% over a 7-year period.
So are you suggesting sterilization of females or
Females,
males?
so Staten Island, just in case you're looking it up, Staten Island is doing males, but males can only be done if you're on a like island, because otherwise other males will come in from other areas based on how far they travel. If you do females, because they stay in the local area, you're not gonna really get that migration from the other areas. So it will lower the population, you know, over the time period.
And what did you say the cost was per per?
They think it's about 900 to 1,500 per deer.
Per female deer.
Correct. So if you wanted to go with that process, they would have FAA licensed pilots actually fly drones in, so we can get the correct population of the deer in the area. Exactly, because otherwise, you know, you're not seeing them all travel through backyards and everything overnight. So it's like heat censored without catching people, dogs, etc.
And does that cost come included in the per deer?
I think it's like part of it. I think you need to have, like, the town has to have a meeting with them to discuss their actual goals and everything, and surveys that they want, etc.
And at what age do you start sterilizing?
I think as soon as they see like a full grown doe. I
What
don't,
age is that? At what age do the deer start?
I don't know exactly. I'm sure it's probably based on a certain size. they
And do
see.
you have to,
How, do you know when they start to like breed other deer, at what age?
Well,
if they're
the
above
males can
reproductive
do
age?
it around 6 to 8 months, believe it or not. And if the situation is right, a female fawn can start breeding maybe even 6 months if they have enough food.
So they're tagged. So after it's done, you'll see a tag on their ear and you'll know, okay, this deer was sterilized.
Do you want to go as well, and then we can do
Yeah.
questions afterwards?
I'm frustrated because you're asking questions that I've answered in the PowerPoint, because as I understand it, there's been quite an avalanche of material on the other side. And there's been 2 presentations by the Division of Fish and Wildlife. And I've been at this for 30 years, and there's a lot that has to be answered. And I tried to put it together, including a broader picture on when the towns are they're wrestling with this issue. The state management in private land is actually managing for early succession, which farms deer, and it farms woodcock and quail and everything. So the first part is about that a little bit. And the second part goes into sterilization, but we Oprah'd the car accidents in Fairhaven. Compared to other towns, they're extraordinarily low. And what happens when you initiate a hunt is that it goes higher. And that happened in Saddle River and everywhere else. You put a cascade of effects into when you have these hunts. And you end up having annual hunts. I sent to Tony DiNicola, who is White Buffalo, and he's in the New York Times, the Washington Post. And he Google mapped the area, the natural area in the sanctuary. He said it's going to do nothing. A hunt's going to do nothing in there because Fairhaven is so built out. What Tony would do, if you're overpopulated, and that hasn't been proved, you have certain benchmarks in wildlife management. One is evidence, another is independent review, another is ethics. And bow hunting is the least ethical form of hunting. They're razor blades. I brought one with me today. But I really want you to watch the PowerPoint because it takes you through the process. It takes you through the 100 complaints that Saddle River got about deer dying on their, in their front yard. about men in tree stands where they shouldn't be, about bringing people from out of town in, scoping out whether you're home or not, or all of these things, but beyond that, it doesn't do anything. You have controlled hunts in New Jersey that have gone for 40 years. And it's all based on do something, you know, we've got to do something, and we're saying, make sure you're doing the right thing, you know, take your foot off the gas. You had an avalanche of material from the other side. You have people, we have, Dr. Merritt from Mount Holyoke, who does state-of-the-art deer surveys. And what we're saying is get a deer survey in, because when you're hearing these numbers, 1 to 3 deer per square mile, 5 deer per square mile, 10. Schmitz of Yale, he's the Osler Professor of Population, says it's completely wrong. It misrepresents the scientific studies that were done on logged land, clear-cut land. So Fairhaven isn't clear-cut. I spoke to, and someone from here should, Peter Reed up at Westport, Connecticut. Westport has not had hunting since 1919. And he was telling me they had a major push, like what we're seeing here, for deer hunting 7 years ago. And I said, what'd you do? Because you have people who want it, they're invested in it. He's a really nice guy. And he said, we just explained to them, this is the way we are. And this is what we do. And they've had, it's kind of amazing because they have hunting around them, but they have a pretty stable population of 30 deer per square mile. And, I think you've got something like that here, because it's a complicated issue. You have deer families and you have so many people in Fairhaven who love them. Where I live, you've got at least 4 people who are taking down fences for deer. The deer sleep in their backyard. And, they're not inanimate objects. They have behavior, and part of that behavior, part of the stability is the older bucks prevent the younger bucks from breeding. And somebody's popping off all the older bucks, because you see them, once they get a decent rack, they disappear. So you lose that ability to stop the younger bucks from breeding. So a buck in my neighborhood is bred already, and I think he's about 8 months old. So you don't get that. And the second thing is deer live in pods. And they're matriarchal, so you have one pod, it overlaps the other, and I see that. And they prevent other deer from coming in. And when you have hunts like in Thompson Park, I once saw 30 deer going down Newman Springs Road right into Red Bank, and probably Fairhaven eventually. So, you know, you have to look at the whole picture, and there are different forms of fertility control, and I've heard people involved with this say it doesn't work, it's ineffective. I've been watching it since it started. You had phases, and parts didn't work, or you needed to give 2 shots, and it was really difficult getting the second shot. Gonacon in contraceptive was the best. The sterilization is 100%. It's 100% effective. And the difference is, you know, contraceptives can be reversed, so you won't lose the deer, and sterilization is permanent. And it can be highly effective. In California, it was almost too effective, and San Jose wanted to reverse it. It's worked in Virginia, it's worked in Ohio. It's worked in Staten Island, which is very expensive because it's 60 square miles. That's a lot of deer. So there's a lot of information you've been told that there's a total other side on. And what I'm saying is get Tony DiCola in here. He's world famous. Look him up. He's
So
in the
can I-
Washington Post.
So can I ask, since you brought him up, so I've tried to read as much as you guys have sent me. I watched his video, and I guess my question is, Connecticut, you brought up, Staten Island, California.
Virginia, Maryland,
So how do
Ohio.
you, so I guess my question is it legal to sterilize in New Jersey?
It is legal. There's a community-based management law and the Division of Fish and Wildlife is doing its damnedest. It hasn't approved any since.
Princeton will
50
hear
years.
back in November, for sterilization too.
Excuse me?
Princeton's going to hear back in November on their sterilization.
And as I sent you that news article, Trishka Cecil, Princeton's attorney, is trying. She's been trying for 3 years. And we were on a phone call with some state senators from that area and, last year. And it really surprised me because one of the men on the phone call lived in one of the neighborhoods. They want to do it in about 6 neighborhoods. And he said, you know, where is that? Because when you did that back in 2003 or whatever, it worked. Sterilization works. And the benefit is.
And so I'm not debating I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not debating the efficacy of sterilization. I'm trying to say, if we were to take action, what is the action we would take if the state is not approving it?
Well, I think that we have spoken to other towns that are getting in league with Princeton. And I kind of think, I'm surprised the state hasn't responded to Princeton because that's kind of the gold standard in terms of all of that. And I think that I know Ocean wanted to band together with them. And I think that an effort has to be made to put pressure on this agency to allow it, because what all these other states are allowing, and Maryland actually validated it as a legitimate wildlife management tool. So, and Tony knows that. And so you've got to press the agency, and, you know, they had that cockamamie law or rule about 2,000 square feet. That wasn't ever a rule. It was just out of thin air. And so you have to watch this agency, but you also have to pressure it. But you also.
And just so
need to
everyone-
know how many deer you have.
No, I get that. And I think just to your point about the 2,000-foot rule, did you guys
That
caught that? So
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's-
in my PowerPoint, I have a letter from Sean Moriarty, of Division of Regulatory Affairs for the DEP, saying it doesn't exist in the statute, it doesn't exist in the regulations. So that's out of the picture.
And also they use air compression now, which also just would bring it out of the picture anyway now, how they would go about darting.
Yeah, and we got Gonacon approved in New Jersey. It's registered. Our organization lobbied to do that 10 years ago. And so I think it's a matter of getting someone in. We can suggest Thomas Millett of Mount Holyoke, because he's not partisan and he's kind of the best, and he can do a deer survey. I would recommend going with a community college in New Jersey, which has a side business in it. They have, Dr. Millett reviews what they do, and he is cut in half what the population is. There's ways you can duplicate if you see a group of deer, and this involves temperatures and everything else. But I just hope you can, stop the, momentum, because I know the way these things work. And they get somebody in a corner, and I've been, that you start out with the assumption that you need to remove deer. And that's a pretty big assumption. And as Westport kind of proves, people don't want to hear it, but part of what Westport does is they deal with these complaints on an individual basis. And the Humane Society of the United States recommends that I would volunteer for it. You have a core of knowledgeable people in the town. So if you get a call that, there's a buck in my tomato patch, I can tootle over and say, well, you can get cheap fencing but everybody who gardens knows that now when you go to a garden center, everything's labeled, deer resistant or whatever. But I think we could probably learn from Westport, because I think we're a lot like Westport.
Westport has a lot more homes with larger lots and more wooded. I mean, it's not nearly as compact as we are. And so I tend to disagree to that point. And also like
That are pretty much like us.
Westport, Connecticut,
I beg your pardon?
Westport, Connecticut.
Nowhere else.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what you're saying. So I also think, we have to think about like population ecology and population dynamics here, right? I mean, deer have no predators, and there's always predators and prey, and the dynamic relationship always is what keeps everything in balance. And just since I've been here in the past 7-8 years, I mean, you have deer walking down 3rd Street, where I live, which is very compact and very very suburban and walking while the kids are riding their bikes. And so they don't even budge, they don't even move. And so I tend to think that the problem has gotten bigger. I don't think that the majority of the people in this town say, we don't have a deer population. I beg to differ. And then you have
Was kind of.
deer resistant plants, but they still get munched. They're eaten, there's no such thing as deer
I
resistant
just want to
plants.
say though, just talking about the areas around here and how compact we are, you know, there is something to say about a hunt. If you look at other.
And I'm not saying a hunt,
statistics-
but I'm just saying there's clearly a deer issue in here. And I think that it needs
I'm
to
not gonna
be,
debate
you
you on
know,
that.
managed in some way.
I'm not gonna debate you on that, because I think hearing, regardless if you agree or not, from everyone I've heard, the majority think there is some sort of a deer problem. So, okay, what's the next step, right? That's what we have to look at. I think we also need to look at, but there are a lot of kids in this area. There are like a lot of families. When you go in with the hunt that you guys suggested with a bow and arrow hunt, because it's cheaper, right? That's what New Jersey suggested to you guys. A lot of times these people come in, these are not professional shooters, right? They're going to hit the deer, and a lot of times these deer, they take 8 hours, 24 hours, and they run after being shot to death. Only like professional sharpshooters who do a brain shot basically kill the deer instantaneously. So a lot of other towns are seeing that these deer run, and they're running into our backyards and everything where children are, and they, you know, look, I live right across from the bird sanctuary. I don't want my kids seeing like a deer dying right in front of our lawn. And yeah, they say, oh, well, you know, hunters won't come onto your property without permission. Agreed. However, if you have a dying deer, what's your choice here? There is no choice, right? Like, you have to allow them to come on your property. So I think like the method that you guys suggested is also like the method that would cause these deer the most suffering, which I like cannot agree with, right? Like, you're environmental, but wildlife is also part of the environment, right? Allowing animals to suffer, I don't think really should be.
But I had 3 years ago during COVID, I had a deer that was dying in my backyard from withering away disease.
Okay.
Withering away disease. I
Sure.
called up a deer company, and I have 4 young kids, and this was during COVID, and that's where we spent all our days in our backyard. And they said, there's so much deer impacted by this disease right now, I'll be to your house in a week.
I'm-
1 week. So I'm talking about my kids saw this dead deer carcass.
Yeah, and would you prefer to see
I'm
that?
just saying, you know, like, but the more population that you have, the easier spread of diseases and other things like that, and so. I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, like.
Could you come sit up here, please? Might be easier for all of us to.
I just think like no one wants to see that, and again, I'm not
Sure.
arguing with you about the deer population, right? I'm arguing that you guys are choosing a bow and arrow. Your recommendation was bow and arrow, like these deer run, they die, and they suffer for hours and hours and hours.
But I don't think anybody in this town wants hunters out there with rifles.
How do you know they're much qualified?
And of course, and so the
I mean,
DP,
don't you have to be,
the
yes.
DEP said that they do a strict,
Yeah, there's
a strict.
I would say, but I'd say
you know,
for this,
screening.
for this conversation, for the sake of
Okay.
argument, let's just say they're not. I think the point she's
They're not
making is.
professional sharpshooters,
I think
is what I'll say.
The point you're making is of all of the list of choices.
Agreed, it
you-
is
you
the
feel like
most
it is the
suffering.
most brutal,
Exactly. Yeah,
least
for both-
sophisticated option.
And I think a lot of times, like, you are talking to people that there is a deer problem, but you're not telling them what possible alternatives are. And if you really talk to a lot of people and say, hey, here are these 3 alternatives, should you go for the most suffering or the least suffering? I am hard pressed to find that people would say, yeah, let's make animals suffer when they don't.
Fair
need
point,
to,
no,
right? That's what I'm talking about, and I do think that we should talk to organizations that do, like White Buffalo. I'm not talking to PETA, right, when we talk to White Buffalo. They do sharpshooting, they do sterilization, right? I think they would be able to give you an accurate idea of the effectiveness. The one thing that I will also tell you, just for your own knowledge, from White Buffalo who does this, is they said, you don't understand when you bring a hunt in, how much personal, like, you know, education you need to tell these people, and what the uproar is when they hear this happening without having some background knowledge on why you made your choice. So again, not gonna disagree with you about the deer population, but I really do think that you should look at alternative options. And here, an hour or two's worth, whatever you heard on New Jersey, right? Like really get an expert in to do that. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, what I could say, I've heard some things here that, are not true in the field, which is that deer are ultimately self-regulating, and I just can't let that go by.
I don't think.
And it depends on the amount of food and cover. Predators never kill the amount of deer that hunters kill. John Steinbeck called the first day of hunting's the seasonal
I don't think anyone,
slaughter.
I think we're just saying because there's no natural predators out here, that the
I
deer
beg your pardon?
population.
Geo-natural.
I said
No
that there's
natural.
no
Yeah, but
natural.
that argument doesn't, you know, if you wanna have Oz Schmitz or BL come in and discuss that with you, maybe we should. Because, it doesn't depend just on predators. There's no way the predators kill the amount of deer that men are killing today. I mean, you kill thousands of deers on the first day of hunting season, but that's not it. What we're talking about is what are we gonna do? Because a lot of the precepts of wildlife management, none of which Fairhaven has met, is independent review, ethics, suffering, and evidence. And you need evidence that you have such an overpopulation of deer, because frequently what happens is that they're very visible. They're not like chipmunks. If you have a deer in your backyard, you know it. And you have a lot of people, at least where I live, who really like the deer. And you have people in Westport who really like the deer. But in any event, I think you need to get in somebody like Tony DiNicola, because I asked him, he said, can you do this?
He's the head of White Buffalo.
And he
just so
said,
you're aware.
it's not, you're not gonna do anything if you do it in the natural area, because you're too built out all around it.
Can I
Tony
ask,
likes
when
that,
you talk to him, one of his points was looking at the road network.
yes.
Did he assess our road network to say it was a good fit for?
Well,
the
yeah, because what he
sterilization approach?
wants, like what he liked in Ocean, is that you had Joe Playa Park. And then Joe Playa Park was totally surrounded by homes. He loves that, because the deer are used to people. Once you have a hunt, it makes it that much harder to do the darting, because they're very wary. So what he could do in Fairhaven, because they drive around at 3 or 4 at night, and the deer are sleeping in people's backyards, they're wary and everything, you can put out corn or whatever, and he'll dart them, and then they have like a mash unit. And they can actually spay a deer in 6 minutes. I mean, that's what it is, you've got,
And just to
And I
give you
have
like more clarity,
hunters-
just on that road network, just so you have like a fuller understanding on what he's talking about. He's talking about like forested area. I actually asked them this question myself. They're talking about like forested areas where you cannot, it's like miles and miles that you don't have anything from the middle of that forest to anywhere that you can create a garage or some sort of, you know, sterilized area to,
I'm referring to the video.
Yeah, it's
So
like a mash
he
unit.
compared Fairfax City to 2 other locations. that
Yeah.
Talked about.
yes, the road networks, there's no issue.
Because he sits on my understanding is he sits on the street and waits for them to be
yeah,
out in the
he
street.
does in Princeton when he sharpshoots. And they go around at 3 or 4, there's no difference. If you're darting.
He's not on
to
the
stir-
street. He's not in the street. It's just accessing.
No,
like-
he's in the street.
Yes, he is in the street.
Let me just say something. And so when he goes to Princeton, he drives around at 3 or 4 in the morning and they sharpshoot or they dart or whatever. And he can do it in the Princeton neighborhoods, which are pretty close together. And they're pretty much like ours. So he probably could do it here. I'm not sure. I can't speak for him. I think he's got to come here and I think he's got to
Okay.
look at it.
It's
I wasn't
different
sure
looking
what,
at
like,
the map
what
and
level
looking
of
at it.
conversation you had I wasn't sure if you'd had that level of conversation with him already.
No, what I did to him was I sent him the natural area. He has all these things, he Google mapped it, and then he
Okay.
went out and he saw all the homes and everything else, and he said, you're not gonna accomplish anything. And secondly, what I really wish you would watch the PowerPoint, because you have to ask some questions when you look at the car accidents. They're so low. And I'm not minimizing them, but they're very, very low, but they're all on Ridge, almost all of them. And what you do when you have a humane non-lethal program is you look at the hot spots and you have these maps that you put over. And you say, why are you having these accidents on Ridge? And then, as I understand it, people are hunting, bow hunting deer in Fairhaven. The minutes in the 2023 said that someone had taken out 26 deer. And I'd like to find out, where, are there any tree stands and when is that hunter active? Because you have some accidents, that are 3 days in a row. And you kind of look at these things and you piece together like, what's going on, who's speeding, why are they crossing the street? But in terms, I think this was justified in terms of car accidents, and they're very low.
I would say, and I can't speak for everybody, but I know the information that's been funneled to me is the biggest concern, especially in the natural area, is the degradation or the deforestation.
Yeah, and I asked Oz Schmitz of Yale if he could come down and look at it, because he looked at South Mountain Reservation, where they were complaining about the deer. And he brought his students, because it's part of it, and they bent down and they got a handful of coffee grounds. The soil was like coffee grounds, and it was a jumping worm. And I don't know what you have in the natural area. I know it's becoming a wetland. But I am interested in, if you've got deer in there, I'm interested in where the hunting is on the private property, because you can, maybe the deer are finding that a safe place. If you're not allowed to hunt on public property in Fairhaven, then maybe,
I don't think you're allowed
You're
to
not
hunt
allowed to hunt.
any property.
In Rumson, you're allowed to because the lots are larger.
You are.
So if-
and
if
in your.
They're larger.
Yeah, in
but
your
we don't
May
have-
2023 minutes, I think it was Brian Rice said that someone, you didn't identify them, had taken out 26 deer in Fairhaven.
Must have been.
So
It was a Brian anecdote.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it was a Brian anecdote. I can't imagine.
I don't know. So I
That
think.
catches all of us by surprise.
Yeah, what you need
I
to
don't
do
know.
is find
I can
out,
take
but,
that as-
what I include in the PowerPoint,
Yeah.
and we're gonna send it out tomorrow, is the
That'd be great.
actual complaints. There are 100 in Saddle River from people who were very upset from either having hunters in their backyard or having, a doe that they knew, die right in front of them. And I think these things, when you're talking about the 4 steps that have been identified by scientists, the ethics, the evidence, the independent review, that should be underlined. And, I see there's preconceived, like Lyme disease was a huge deal. And then you mentioned that even, Dr. Kruger from the CDC said the presence of a lot of deer may actually be good, because they're not really a vector of Lyme disease. It's the white-footed mouse, and that depends on acorns, on the mast crop that you get, and that's been in the New York Times and the Washington Post. So there's a lot of exonerating information, and I think it's an ethical issue about, I agree with May. It's how we do it, and I think there are more sources that we should be talking to. I think we should talk to Westport. I had mentioned to Brian Reed, Peter Reed, who is the animal control officer, that they had more land, and he said, no, we're pretty densely populated in areas. The ones I'm familiar with are pretty dense. And
So Susan, I think you're I'll concede, you're absolutely right that we have an opportunity to learn a lot more about other options. Concede that right away. I think where I'm stuck, and I'll even say further, an independent review and getting some evidence about our deer population makes a whole lot of sense, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't speak for the mayor, but I would imagine that was implicit in making any decision going forward, is having some sort of survey. If it's not, I will certainly bring it up and.
And can we say
Build
like
that.
also by a non-biased party, not by state of New
Exactly.
Jersey, by one that does both sterilization and sharpshooting?
Totally open to that, an independent, assessment, I get to you, it's like.
well, Millette's the
All I wanna
best.
say, Susan, is
That's Mount
what
Holyoke.
I'm stuck on is. Even if we all agreed that sterilization was the answer, I still haven't heard how we move forward.
In what way?
How
So,
would we move forward if we all agreed there is a problem? And we wanted to do sterilization,
you have to put your plan forward through New Jersey, and the more towns that put through sterilization, they still haven't said no yet to Princeton. The more towns that go through and say, this is what we want, the more probable it's going to,
Yeah,
you know.
because you know what we
I also
did?
have a question
With
too.
Princeton, we got the state senator involved. We got the state senator who represents Princeton involved. And, so he was putting pressure on La Tourette. And so what you do is you kind of get your state senator, maybe a federal, it's, everything's political, isn't it? And so in the end, if you've got an agency that's dragging its heels, you try to put pressure on the state senator, we can go to Murphy's office again. We were dealing with Governor Murphy's office on the Bear Hunt for quite a long time.
Can I, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Where does this money come from?
I beg your pardon?
Where's this money going to come from?
The money?
Yes, sterilization.
Well, that's a good question.
I mean, we're paying like $500,000 right now to pave the Fisk parking lot, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be some thought
No,
about.
that is my question is,
What?
where's this coming from? Because we went from recycling once a week to every other week because of the budget cap. So now there's all these financial implications, so I'm just saying,
Well, there are grants in the
Well-
humane world. You have,
My question was, does it cost anything to get Tony down here? Like, what does his cost to come over and do a survey for it? Like, what is the upfront cost of having him come speak and survey and just get that? So we
yeah,
know more
it's,
about it.
it's part
Is there
of,
a cost
in
to
the
it?
PowerPoint, you do have, someone saying that when it comes to wildlife, no one wants to do anything. It's like, well, buy deer, a lot of people think they shouldn't do a damn thing and that just get rid of them. And you gotta do something. And what other towns have done, it's been mainly, you have many other areas that have done this. It's not like it's not doable. You have Clifton, Ohio, where they raised the money for it. And they got it down to, what generally happens is you start out, you need Tony the first couple of years because he has like a MASH unit. He's got a veterinarian, he's got highly trained people. You save money. I spoke to a hunter I know, who's a really nice guy. And I said, would you be willing, if Tony came in to cut costs, would you be willing to dart? Because you need, the process is you've got to dart the deer and you trank them. And then you have to follow them and then you put them on a stretcher and you bring them in. And this guy, it was great. He said, oh yeah, because he doesn't think there should be bow hunting in Fairhaven.
I just don't understand, and do we have a problem or do we not have a problem? Because how did we get to right here? This was before my time. I wasn't even I wasn't aware that there was a massive deer problem. It's from the two of you guys, it sounds like there isn't, but there also is. Like, I understand there's a deforestation problem in the bird sanctuary. I see it in the 3rd Street Trail. I see it in, there are ways that we can mitigate deer eating. We fence new saplings. There are some, but do we have a huge deer problem that we need to either kill or sterilize? Or can we just go back to where, how did we get to this?
So if you look back.
How did you get to a
But that's the premise.
Yeah, like why are we killing deer?
Because we have
So,
input that says we have a certain number of deer per.
So how we got here is if you look about a year and a half ago into your minutes, one of the people who were now taken off the committee brought up that
Yeah.
we have an issue here with deer and we need to do something about it. Then he contacted the state, what was his name, Brian? Is that right? What's his name?
Yes.
Right.
Right, thank you. So he went to New Jersey, who is the hunting committee, which he's a hunter, Brian's a hunter as well, brought them into, now look. Talk to these three people here, they would agree with you looking at it. We haven't had a study, you know, but that's kind of how it started. And I think a lot of people will agree that there might be it because of deforestation. There's been like no vehicle collisions, basically, and during hunts, actually vehicle collisions usually.
Right, I know that. So is it just really the deforestation? I mean, I know, I'm not saying just really, but like, I don't.
I think
It
it's-
was, the
What
premise
was the
was the
premise?
counts.
The
Yeah.
counts, they
The
said
only
there's probably an
people
estimate of
argue this
200
until the
deer, our
cows come
town
home.
should be like 8. Okay,
So-
so it's based on.
basically the cart before the horse.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
What I'm saying is, we have a problem, but do we have a problem?
Well, we.
That's
so-
why you need somebody to count the
All right, I
deer.
mean, it's like,
So what we have done is we've contacted DPW or, the state.
Yeah, state of New
DPW,
Jersey, yeah.
not DPW.
Division of Wildlife.
Wildlife and.
Yeah.
It was a DEP, isn't it?
Are you gonna watch my PowerPoint like when I
just
leave?
got it. We didn't even get it until you walked in.
No, no, no,
But
we're
I'm
not-
suggesting that you.
I would be happy to, if I had,
But not right, I mean,
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
I understand
It's
that.
25 minutes.
I haven't done it yet, I understand that, but I think
So
that
we can-
when you're watching the division.
I just feel like we don't have the full picture, I mean.
I do
Well, that's
think
what part of
it's-
this is to get there.
To get there,
That's all we're doing tonight.
I get it, I understand that, but
There's
I
no
do,
decisions being made.
right, I
The
do feel
Division
like,
of Fish and Wildlife is, there's a conflict of interest as wide as a barn door.
Understood your, I
And
understand.
everything about them, and what I have in the PowerPoint is what they've been up to.
And
They
I,
illegally clear cut 21 acres of wetland for the woodcock, a game bird. There's all sorts of things that are going on with the Division of Fish and Wildlife. Look, it's their job, I can't blame them, but their main mission is to provide hunt opportunities. And they're working with the National Shooting Sports Foundation to go into towns to bring what they say closer to population centers, because New Jersey, the number of hunters is half. The number of deer in New Jersey is way down. And part of that is that the number of hunters is way down, and this is counterintuitive. But when you go to wildlife management school or take courses, what they teach you is there's a certain level of deer that you kill to keep the deer in the fast growth phase of the reproductive cycle. They have reproductive cycles, it's a pyramid. And the more crowded they get, which you don't want, the less they breed, and if you kill a lot of deer, there's better neonatal health. They'll get pregnant earlier because they have better food. So what I'm trying to do is just put a dimension on this, that these are animals with a social structure. The adults keep the young from breeding. And you have like a degree of stability. In my perfect world, we'd get the money and we'd sterilize them just to stop this, to stop this in its track. And when you're talking about money, other places have gotten it mainly through grants.
Okay.
And our organization, we can raise a lot of money, but we can do a GoFundMe. We can do any number of things, but first, you are putting the cart before, you need to know. We need to be honest, we need to know whether it's feasible here.
right, we didn't know how many
Yeah,
no's
It
there
may
are
not
that
be
we need to
feasible here,
sterilize.
and we don't know
I do
that,
think that we may
and we don't know how many deer we really have.
Right.
And so I just think that we need to, hear from people who really, I'm not Oz Schmitz of Yale. I'm not Dr. Millett, I've been around them. And I have a pretty good idea that Tony's gonna like what he sees here, but I'm not positive. And then you put one thing first, can you do it? And then if you can do it, okay, how are we gonna get the money? And and if you want sterilization, you've gotta politicize it and bring in political people. And we thought we had it in Princeton, because, we did have, the state senator, we had a congressman, and they were all pressing, and Murphy he lives right here. I mean, he should be somewhat amenable to doing this, and then, so let's find out if we can do it first.
can you give us the opportunity to review the PowerPoint? I would really like the time to, we just didn't see it.
Yeah,
tonight's meeting,
And I did
so-
it myself, so, usually someone does it, so.
So if we could just take that in and come back, or,
Yes, that's totally fine.
yeah, can we get an email,
Yeah.
discuss it next
Right.
month after we've seen it?
Yeah.
Digested it,
And
get
get-
questions
and
and
everyone-
understanding,
yeah.
everybody on board,
Yeah.
and it's getting late.
Did you all see Tony's email, webinar, the 15-minute one?
Yeah, I watched that.
That, he kind of gave you a rundown.
And that's where my questions are coming from. So my main question. How do we do it in New Jersey?
And then did you see his longer one?
Yes, I watched that one too.
That's it.
So and like I said, your credentials, your background, you're absolutely the right person to come speak to us about this. I appreciate everything you've said tonight. I appreciate you trying to educate us on it. Like I said, I'm a little bit stuck because in a town, a small town of all volunteers, to pick up a project like this that is, now we've got to, it follows
I'm happy
every
to
other.
volunteer for it.
Thank
If, like,
you.
you know what I
Me
mean? And I think, even like,
But, just let me finish what I was gonna say. It's just I'm not saying that I'm an advocate for the hunt. I'm just saying that in either way we go, it's work that needs to be done.
And
And
money.
if you're telling me that the state doesn't support it already, I don't know that I'm going to be
harder.
someone that would raise my hand to do that type of work. Without some sort of clear path of how it gets approved if we've done all the right things.
Would you be willing to work with Trishka, Cecil of Princeton?
I wouldn't be willing until I see the PowerPoint, because you're asking me too many questions with, and I don't have the knowledge. Really, I mean, this is like all new to me, and you're throwing this out, it's like, give us some time, give me time to research it.
Yes.
That's all I'm
Have you
saying.
seen Tony DiNicolo's?
I haven't seen
15-minute
anything
webinar?
other than the agenda for tonight, and it's
No.
like,
We're not new truly to this other side. I mean, we've heard a lot about one side and I have to agree, like, what you're talking about. So there's value there, but I'm on my heels right now. I really
Oh, my goodness.
was not,
Could we get Tony's
yes,
15-minute
we'll-
webinar to everyone?
I think I sent it with the.
It is, it's out
agenda.
there, so
Yeah.
all the pre-read. was
yeah,
buried in
it's the
there.
link,
The
it's on
link's
the
from
bottom,
the-
right?
Oh, what's-
Okay, we'll get.
Yeah, and then I sent a longer one also, where he explains that bow hunting never works. I want to say, this is on the record, Tony won't mind. He kills more animals, believe me, than he does this. And when he says sterilization is the way to go, what he's saying is, what the ultimate is, what we all want is a one-shot dart. That hunters can go out, because, and instead of killing, they dart them. And that's what he's trying to prove with the sterilization, that if you are able to do that, you've got it licked. Sterilization does it.
And like I said, I, in his video, he also says you cannot do it in New Jersey. It is not legal in New Jersey.
Oh, he said
He
that
says that.
before, and he said no one has done anything. And that's when I wrote to Regulatory Affairs and they said, no, there's no such regulation as the 2,000 feet. So that was swept out of the way. And then we had the call with, Princeton with, I keep forgetting his name. It starts with the senator state senator who represents Princeton.
Okay.
And Trishka and a couple of including the one councilman who wanted the non-lethal. So, and I sent you the news article where Princeton is saying, we've been trying to get this for 3 years. And they show the map of the neighborhoods that are just like Fairhaven that they want to do it in. And then once you do it, what Clifton, Ohio did is you have to start out with Tony's crew because they're so good. And then he trains volunteers. And what we could get here is we could get 5 or 6 hunters who could do the darting. So you're saving a lot of money right there if they're good shot. And then, but you start out, it's expensive. And then you get fewer and fewer animals. So, Clifton, Ohio, I think they did 4 deer last year. So it goes down,
Yeah.
it's a reverse
Yeah,
pyramid.
Okay. So I think that was a good discussion.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys both coming in and sharing and putting together the PowerPoint that we will make sure everyone has a chance to view after this closes tonight. I'm not shutting the door on the conversation. I'm just trying to end the meeting tonight. And then if we believe it's necessary for us to have another conversation with a public forum, this will actually absolutely be the way we do it.
Yes, and I can just recommend Dr. Thomas Millett of Mount Holyoke
Okay.
for a survey. If we can get Oz Schmitz down here. I've asked him once to bring his students and to take a look at the natural area and see what the damage is, because generally what Oz will say is that when you have a canopy forest, you have, the sunlight doesn't reach the floor, you have different vegetation down on the bottom. And you have to see the extent of, I was in there and I saw some browse lines. And I used to walk there all the time and I stopped because I was sinking.
What would just be really beneficial for me too is if you guys review it and you have like questions, if you could let us know it, so like, cause sometimes you don't have the answers right off, there's studies that we could provide or whatever, so that would be beneficial too before next meeting.
Have you guys, met with the Natural Area Advisory Committee?
I actually have, and for example, like Bonnie, you know, is a massive tree person, she even asked a question like, okay, if I am for a hunt and, you know, is there a way not to go about shooting them? Can you, you know, give them a dart tube, put them down for the moment and then, and you can, and again, not that I'm supporting that, but that was a question that I didn't know, and I wanted to go back and give you the information, and because there are a lot of alternative ways that unless we have discussions, no one's gonna really know the answers to, so and just to, you know, put it to the natural committee too. These people work really hard. I was very impressed to listen to what these people do and how much they care, and something that it is really important though. No, it really is important. These people are doing a lot of work, and if we come to the understanding that there is a problem with these deer, like we can reduce the population by 45%. We spend so much money doing this and this and this, but if it is a problem with the deer doing deforestation, which again, I think we need a study to see. Let's help these people do their job and put our money to work. So, you know, it's actually being effective. So that's,
Yeah.
and I'll leave it at that, because I know it's late for you guys and, you know, you have a life, right?
I would like to find out how you're being killed.
To
in
Natural Area, can you
And
share the
where
PowerPoint
and when.
with Karen?
Because
I'm curious too.
you need to know that, because that affects running into roads and everything else.
Oh, so she didn't, yeah.
Yeah. So-
Oh,
I don't see anyone on the phone. We're on.
there are.
Oh, okay. So now we have an opportunity for public comment. Anyone in the, Bonnie or Susan, do you guys wanna have any comment? Present topic or any topic?
Okay, well, I have a, but since you're leaving, what is your name?
These people.
I know
My name is Sue Russell.
Russell, and you live on Schwenkers.
I live on Chestnut, right on Schwenkers.
And did you send out a letter or something? I kind of feel like I read something that you wrote.
You wrote the article. Or you-
Oh, I did one on that for the 2 River Times.
Okay, maybe that's, okay, so, and now it's PowerPoint, because I don't think the natural area ever saw this PowerPoint that you're discussing. But I would think it would be great to share.
Yeah,
that too.
I think Christie, right?
Sure.
We have had several
Great.
people
Great.
from the park services, from Rutgers, from some treatment that we've been doing in areas, say that we have a definite deer problem. We have no undergrowth. The bird sanctuary, there's not, you know, there's nothing growing. There's no understory, there's nothing. And if you see, every time I'm in there, there's a pack of deer in there. Every time I'm on Third Street Trail working, the deer are running past me, staring at me, I mean, they're all over, I feel like. I would be curious, you know, I've heard that we have about 200 deer in this town. That's from a couple different, they said like we should have
From whom?
this from this fellow that came into tree from the Park Service, just based on the fact that we have no.
The National Park Service?
No, Monmouth County Park Service.
Yeah, well, you know, they contribute to it because part of the, when you see the PowerPoint, I start out purposely with a broader picture of how deer are being managed in New Jersey, how habitat is being managed in New Jersey. It's called early succession. And like Thompson Park has a lot of open fields, and when you have edge in your forest and everything, it's kind of like farming deer. I'm not saying there's no damage, you know, I said I was in there and I saw browse, but I'm also saying we have the same thing kind of, I grew up in Short Hills. And I used to camp out in South Mountain, and I remember they had all those deer, they had them in a pen, and then they opened it up and released it. But South Mountain was saying all of this, the same kind of thing, and so was Watchung Reservation. And Watchung Reservation has been slaughtering deer for, I think, 35 or 40 years. And the forest is still a mess. It's still in really bad shape.
So imagine if they hadn't been.
I don't know, it's a lot of
I mean, I
different
don't
things. It's a port of New York, you know, are coming over. But, I also, when I'm saying I wanna find out where they're hunting deer in Fairhaven, I wanna find out.
I've never heard that.
Well, it's in for minutes.
I know, but I think it
Susan,
might.
we'll try to find the answer. None of us think that actually happens.
I've never heard that.
Well, because I lobbied against it.
I would
It
love
was
to.
wrong.
Yes.
They don't. There was, it was quality murder. And, it used to be 400, you had to be 400 feet from an occupied dwelling. And that still applies to guns, but they reduced it to 150 feet for both. So I kind of thought that was like statewide, just why was that in your minutes?
Oh, we'll find out. I don't know the answer
Because
right now.
it is legal to hunt in Fairhaven if the lot is a certain size, but
That's what I'm
there's
saying.
very few, you could probably count on your hand
Yeah.
where the lot is that size,
Yeah,
so I don't think it's.
Because, you know, I'm just wondering why the deer, you know, are clustered in there, because I don't know.
But have you- I
Maybe
mean,
they-
I'd also be curious, and I'll close it, but I know, we'll move on, but.
Well, I think we all benefit from seeing this perspective. I mean, obviously, I don't know how many deer you need to sterilize, because it's expensive, so it's $1,000 a deer. So do you do 20 and again, the whole fact that,
Oh,
so
no,
what do you want us to
he
do
called
until,
it everything.
what do you want us to do until it gets approved by the state? Are you asking us to join this cause to get it passed? Is that what you're really trying to campaign for us to be added on to
So we're
Princeton and?
here in November, when they officially, like, Princeton's already submitted everything, so November they hear. That will give us at least a starting point, I think, to know, is it approved, or is it something that?
So Princeton is heading it on behalf of a whole lot of other towns in the state?
On behalf of Princeton is heading it, but other people, from what I've heard, are submitting paperwork as
Well,
well.
I mean, nobody wants to kill an animal. I mean, unless that's really.
Yeah, but that's how it
reason.
started,
So-
because this whole thing started with, it's circular. And I'm old enough that I've seen it since the get-go, and it started with getting into the suburbs. And then first it was Lyme disease, and then when you discredit that, then it goes to car accidents. And then it went to forest health. And so what we're saying is, isn't that a nursery? It wasn't the natural area a nursery?
Yes, way back.
Yeah, and so I don't, is it natural?
It's, well, now it is, yeah.
Yeah, it is, but you, didn't you have a meadow in there that you cut, yeah. That's how you manage for deer. That's, if you look at any kind of, if you go home and Google managing habitat for deer, you're gonna see, you're gonna see going to a woodland or going to a forest and cutting a tract in it and putting in a food plot. So that's basically what you're doing when you're keeping that meadow. Instead of letting it grow back, you know, reforest, that's how you manage for deer. You have the edge, you have the forest for the cover, and then they eat the browse in the meadow.
And that's just where they stay.
Pardon?
That's where you want them to stay, is that what you're saying? You want them to stay?
No, but I'm saying that, New Jersey is doing, it's completely incoherent, the management of habitat. They are managing mainly for small game, because small game hunters like ducks, and they spend more. So what they're doing is, they're managing for early succession in a lot of private preserves, and then on public wildlife management areas. If you go into a wildlife management area, you're gonna see clear cuts, you're gonna see round ones, and you're gonna see oblong ones. And that's what they do so that they can have game species approximate to a forest.
Well, okay,
So it's not-
is this all in your PowerPoint? So what?
We do have early succession
Is there any
management.
any other public comment other than discussion?
Bonnie, did you have, did you have?
Question for the commission, for us? You have a question for us?
I just want to come on the ERI, I think it's great, like, what I'm just curious, so you took Jesse's document, you put the like, you try to put relevant Fairhaven issues first, and then the body of, like, the, you know, New Jersey and all the soil and all that other is still in there somewhere?
Yes, it's all in there.
Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think the natural area, you know, send it out. Can we get that?
Yeah.
Will you send
Yes,
that?
we will send that
Okay.
out to natural area, shade tree, green team,
Okay.
at least those committees that. would-
Yeah,
Would help.
need your input.
I do want to say before the, well, something that we talked about last year and it's already snuck up on us. In terms of the living shoreline as well, the Christmas tree initiative, of finding that, so we should have that
We
conversation.
talked about that with Nick.
And start to,
briefly.
yeah, start to
Yeah.
talk about it and push it out, because, you know, we'll be at November.
Mhm.
So next meeting, yeah.
Um,
So if there's anything that we can start to do to drum up support for that.
All right, Susan, any questions or comments? Oh,
I
bodies.
just one question on the spending the money. So you're giving the, Eagle Scout project?
Yes,
on
130.
Does that mean I have to get the PO?
Yes,
Get
it
that
does.
$100? So do I have to go through this whole thing and
Is
get?
it easier?
Well, I have to get a quote from Tony for $100 worth of plants, then bring it in, get it approved, right?
I don't know what you're planning to spend it on, but
Yeah,
those
Or
spending-
Lowe's fencing. We got the soil donated generously by risers.
Okay, so maybe,
to spend the money, you need to follow the process, yeah. You can call me tomorrow.
that's
fine.
okay, I'm sorry, finish.
I know, sorry.
Thanks, Stephanie. Adams.
Susan, any comment, questions? Okay, people online? Stephanie?
All right, Stephanie.
Hi, it's Stephanie Adams on Zoom.
Hi, we can hear you.
Anna actually beat me to the punch. So my first question was about, are we doing any kind of Christmas tree initiative, in the short term to try to, shore up
sure.
the banks at D Normandy. So I'm glad to hear that, you guys are gonna start talking about that, because I think it'd be a worthwhile project. And then I also just wanted to make one more comment. I don't want to talk about the deer, and I personally don't really love the idea of the hunt. But I just wanted to make one more point that it didn't come up, but I remember hearing this from some of the conversations that we had, you know, on walks with the folks from Monmouth County Parks, is, you know, another issue with the deer is that, you know, it's not just the deer wasting disease for the deer, but it's also their wild animals. And we're not meant to live in such close quarters with wild animals. You run the risk, right, of these zoonotic diseases. And not, this is an absolute worst case scenario, but that is sort of an additional risk, right? Where we're just not meant to be living that closely with wild animals. And so that's another risk, whether it's, you know, hopefully it wouldn't be like a wasting, but it's just not, we're not meant to be living that closely with wild animals. So I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah, so good luck with that. It's a complicated situation, and I hope we can figure it out. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Anyone else?
I had the natural committee too, I'm not sure the name of glasses, he had like an iPad. Do you remember? Potentially, he actually said to that point that there's more deer like ever, now because they need that environment. They actually thrive in environments that are like a little bit more open towards communities. So I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I think that's something like we should fact check and talk to other people, because I think that's how a lot of deer survive actually in close proximity. So, okay, I'm not starting anything, I just wanted to look at that.
You have a lot of people feeding deer in Fairhaven.
Any other closing comments? All right, guys, thank you. Our guests, Meg and Susan, appreciate you guys coming out and sharing topic you're very passionate about. I appreciate it. We will continue the conversation. Okay. You guys, thank you for getting through a very big agenda this month. There's a lot of pre-reads. A lot of what Susan went over is in the packets that you got in emails already. So that plus the PowerPoint will give you more than enough to read and watch for the next couple days if you're interested. But thank you guys. Good meeting.
Make motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you very much.